In the 1960s, the Royal Navy were looking to modernise their fleet of aircraft carriers. A programme was begun to acquire four new supercarriers. Known as the CVA-01s, they officially became known as the Queen Elizabeth class. But these carriers would require a more modern and capable air defence destroyer to protect them. The Type 82 destroyer design was loosely based on the Leander-class frigates and the counter-class destroyers. Across the pond, the US Navy was in the process of modernising their fleet with the 80,000-ton Kitty Hawk class of carriers, which were able to carry up to 95 aircraft. Although the Royal Navy possessed the second largest fleet of aircraft carriers in the 60s, the largest carrier they possessed could only hold up to 25 aircraft. The planned Queen Elizabeth class would have been able to carry up to twice this number. With each aircraft carrier likely to cost up to £100 million each, the new Labour government in 1966 decided to cancel the programme. And then the question of what to do with the Type 82 destroyers raised its head. By the time of the 1966 Defence Review, HMS Bristol had already been ordered on the 17th of April 1963. It was decided to go ahead with her construction to use her as a testbed for new technology. Although she was ordered in April 1963, she wasn't laid down until the 15th of November 1967. She was built at Swan Hunter on the River Tyne. HMS Bristol was launched just under 2 years later on the 30th of June 1969 and then commissioned on the 31st of March 1973 at Avonmouth, just outside the city of Bristol. She displaced 7,100 tons when full, had a length of 507 feet, a beam of 55 feet, and a draft of 24 feet 7 inches. Her theoretical top speed was 28 knots, and she had a range of 5,750 nautical miles at a speed of 18 knots. She had a complement of 397 men, including 30 officers. As a testbed for new technology, HMS Bristol was the first ship to be given the new 4.5-inch naval gun in 1973, and this new naval gun was also the first weapon to be fitted on HMS Bristol. The 4.5-inch gun had been the standard naval gun fitted to all destroyers and frigates of the Royal Navy since 1938. Bristol's gun was the new Mark 8 version with a 55 caliber barrel, and this was also fitted to subsequent Royal Navy destroyers and frigates. The twin 4.5-inch gun required crew members to manually load the shells, whereas the new single 4.5-inch gun operated an automatic loading system, therefore requiring less crew to operate the gun. It could fire 25 rounds per minute and had a range of 12 nautical miles. Located behind the 4.5-inch gun was the Australian-designed Ikara anti-submarine missile. HMS Bristol was the first Royal Navy ship to be armed with this anti-submarine weapon system, which would carry a homing torpedo 10 nautical miles from the ship, drop it in the water, and then the torpedo would carry on until it hit its target. The CVA-01 carriers were also planned to be fitted with this system. Subsequently, the Ikara was fitted to several Leander-class frigates. At the stern, the Sea Dart missile launcher was located. Bristol was the first ship to fire a Sea Dart missile in 1973. The Sea Dart was later fitted to all of the Type 42 destroyers, with HMS Sheffield being the first to receive it. The Sea Dart was launched by the MOD-0 launcher. Bristol was the first and only ship to use this version of the launcher. Also at the stern of HMS Bristol was the Limbo mortar and its launch pit. With the advent of the nuclear-powered submarine, the performance of submarines increased exponentially. In line with the development of the nuclear submarine, so did ways to counter them and the threat they posed. The Limbo mortar, officially called the Anti-Submarine Mortar Mark 10, was a forward-throwing 3-barrel mortar with a range of between 400 and 1,000 yards. After launching, the mortars would land around a target in a triangular formation. The 909 naval radar was installed in HMS Bristol in pairs, one fore and one aft, and they were designed to control and guide the Sea Dart missile. The 909s were also installed on the Type 42s. For the Sea Dart missile to launch, the gun director would select a target, choose one of the two 909s on board to lock onto the target, then the gun director would then have ordered the missiles to be loaded from the loading bay onto the twin launcher, and then the Sea Dart would be fired. The limbo mortar was connected to the ship's sonar, of which Bristol possessed two, a Type 170 search sonar and the Type 184 target indication sonar. In addition to the 909 radar, Bristol possessed the Royal Navy standard radar, the Type 965, which was an air search radar. It was known as the bedstead because it looked like a bedstead. Initially, the Queen Elizabeth class carriers and the Type 82s were going to be fitted with the Anglo-Dutch Type 988 radar, but obviously the Type 965 was ultimately chosen. Another radar was the Type 992Q low-angle radar, which could operate as a search radar and a target designator for the weapon systems. And for navigation, HMS Bristol used the Type 978 radar. And linking all of these systems together was the advanced ADAWS Mark II computer system, which was designed to coordinate all of the ship's weapons and sensors. Called the Action Data Automation Weapons System Mark II, this system was the most pioneering new technology that Bristol was a testbed for. And in this regard, Bristol was a huge leap forward from the county-class destroyers. The county-class destroyers relied on manually inputted data. The ADAWS Mark II system would be fed data from all of the ship sensors. It would produce a track for each target and then select the most suitable weapon system to engage that target with. Although a testbed for new technology, Bristol never possessed an anti-ship weapon system, and as such was never suited to lone patrol duties. Rather, she could act as a flagship for a squadron or even a fleet should the need arise, which she did on several occasions. For example, Exercise Ocean Safari in 1981 and again in the following year at the end of the Falklands War. In 1974, she suffered a boiler fire which destroyed the steam plant, but HMS Bristol was able to operate for 3 years on just her gas turbines. The steam plant was only repaired in 1977. She went through her first refit in 1979. The Corvus chaff launchers were replaced by the SBROC chaff launchers, her limbo mortar was removed, which was replaced by a swimming pool, and 2 World War II era Oerlikon 20mm cannons were also added. 1981 was a busy year for HMS Bristol. She took part in Exercise Spring Train and Ocean Safari. In November, another refit beckoned, and this was planned to last for 28 weeks. There were rumours floating about that HMS Bristol was to be scrapped due to the cost of both her maintenance and the number of crew to operate her. Apart from her initial role as a testbed for new technology, she had no other real defined role. But these rumours were soon sunk when the British overseas territory of the Falkland Islands were invaded by Argentina on the 2nd of April 1982. During her refit, before voyaging to the Falklands, her flight deck was strengthened so as to be able to land heavy helicopters such as the Chinook and the Sea King if necessary. So by the time the Falklands were invaded, HMS Bristol was in Portsmouth, and most of her crew were on leave and subsequently ordered back to Portsmouth. Bristol and her crew were put on 48 hours' notice to steam south. The refit was cut short, and she had to set sail for post-refit trials on the 15th of April. Discovered during the trial was a faulty fuel pump, but this was quickly repaired. And before setting sail, HMS Bristol was victualled from Royal Clarence Yard and armed from the Royal Navy armament depots, with both sites located in Gosport, on the western side of Portsmouth Harbour. She duly set sail on the 10th of May to lead the Bristol Group, which was several ships, to reinforce the British ships already on station at the Falkland Islands. Under the command of Captain Alan Groves, she left Portsmouth accompanied by RFA Oldner, an old-class tanker of the Royal Fleet Auxiliary. The two ships rendezvoused with the Amazon-class frigates Avenger and Active and the Leander-class frigates Penelope, Minerva and Andromeda, and they had steams from Devonport. On the 12th of May, the Sheffield-class destroyer, HMS Cardiff, set sail from Gibraltar and joined the Bristol Group on the 14th of May. The Bristol Group was designated as CTU 318.8 and they reached Ascension Island over 2 days on the 19th and 20th of April. As the Bristol Group neared the area of operations, a Boeing 727 long-range maritime reconnaissance aircraft was observed nearby, and it reached to within 35 miles of the group. HMS Cardiff was ordered to drop back and fire the Sea Dart missile, but did not hit the target. However, the aircraft subsequently retreated. The Bristol Group had joined the main task force on the 26th of May, and HMS Bristol took up an air defence role, following the loss of Sheffield, Ardent, Coventry and Antelope. Glasgow and Argonaut were forced to sail back to the UK due to receiving severe damage. 2 days later, on the 28th of May, HMS Bristol was ordered to the Logistics Operating Area and took up station as Loader Manager. Her main role there was to ensure that any ships heading to the battle group or the amphibious operating area were given their orders and left for the Falklands on schedule. HMS Glamorgan relieved HMS Bristol as Loader Manager the very next day. During the conflict, HMS Bristol fired her Sea Dart missile just once in anger. Due to heightened tensions following the loss of several ships, Bristol picked up a contact on her radar. Seeing it as a threat, she fired her missiles. But it was just a cloud. Better to be safe than sorry comes to mind. HMS Bristol remained on station after the Argentine surrender. Admiral Woodward was relieved as commander on the 1st of July by Admiral Reffel. Reffel transferred his flag to Bristol. She was the flagship until being relieved by HMS Illustrious on the 28th of August, after which she sailed home to the UK with a cormorant on board. Named Bobo, she crash-landed onto the gun director platform. She made the long voyage back to the UK, being looked after by the crew. In Portsmouth, she was handed over to London zookeepers, and she spent the rest of her life at London Zoo. A short time later, a few crew members were invited to the zoo, where a handover ceremony was held. Sadly, Bobo passed away a few months later, in December, following an infection. HMS Bristol entered Portsmouth Harbour on the 17th of September with HMS Invincible to a rapturous reception by family, friends, the locals, and the Queen. Due to the loss of several ships during the war, Bristol remained in commission. 1984 saw another refit and another border explosion. The refit saw the Type 965 radar replaced with the new Type 1022 radar. The Akara weapon system was supposed to be replaced with the Ship Torpedo Weapon System Mark I, which fired the Spearfish torpedo. However, they were never fitted, and Akara was never replaced. HMS Bristol had a stint as part of the Dartmouth Training Squadron in the late 80s. In 1991, she was refitted to replace HMS Kent, a county-class destroyer, as the harbour training ship based at HMS Excellent in Portsmouth. During the refit, a 4.5-inch gun and Sea Dart launcher were removed. And then during subsequent refits, she had her radars removed and her mast and 3 funnels reduced in size. Her appearance altered with her changing role. Her final few decades saw her used as a training ship and accommodation for Royal Navy personnel and youth groups such as the Sea Cadets, the Sea Scouts, the Combined Cadet Force, and at times the Air Training Corps and Army Cadets. During this period, HMS Bristol's company was comprised of both Royal Navy and civilian staff. In February 2020, it was announced that HMS Bristol would be decommissioned, and so it was that her decommissioning ceremony was held on HMS Bristol on the 28th of October 2020, following a career of some 47 years. Despite efforts to save this unique vessel as a museum ship, she was towed out of Portsmouth Harbour on the 11th of June 2025. A sad but inevitable fate for one of the UK's longest-serving and unique warships. HMS Bristol was lucky to have an amazing crew. It's clear HMS Bristol has a special place in the hearts of her former crew members, and this is evident in the send-off she received as she passed around Tower when she left Portsmouth Harbour. This video is dedicated to HMS Bristol and the men who served on her.